Well, it is Saturday morning, April 23rd of 2022, and I'm sitting on my back porch here in Lakeland, Florida. It is 78 degrees, and the wind is really whipping up. And because we have screens, you'll probably hear the wind whistling at different times while I'm making this video. There's no need in apologizing for that since I can't do anything about it, and this is probably the most enjoyable place for me to do this. But what I want to talk to you about today is a book I've been reading, and I thought it'd be just a pleasure to kind of go through it with you, not just in one day, but perhaps on many different days as I wendle my way through it. And it's going to be a while because it's a very large book, but this book is a biography on Thomas Alva Edison, written by Edmund Morris. This is 634 readable pages, and it's very heavy. I love the density and the weight of this book. I love the picture, I love the smell of the pages. True book readers will understand what I'm talking about. Now, Edmund Morris, I was kind of turned on to his writings when I had read his trilogy on Theodore Roosevelt. I think the first one was called Colonel Roosevelt, and the other one was Theodore Rex. Maybe Colonel Roosevelt was the third one. I don't remember what they were called. Maybe I'll put them on the screen here. But they were just tremendous biographies on President Roosevelt, different times of his life. He also wrote a biography on Ronald Reagan called Dutch, a memoir of Ronald Reagan. And then he also wrote Beethoven, the Universal Composer. Edmund Morris died in 2019. Edison was his final work. Now, I am only I've only gotten up to page 41 of this 634 pages. So like I said, I'll be doing it for a while. I typically read about 3 different books a day, not entirely, but I spend 20 minutes at a time in each book every day. That gives me time to do other things and not overcommit to reading, but just enough to chew on, ruminate on, and then if I so desire, I have not too much information to be able to share with other people. So that's what I want to do. This is what this video is all about, is sharing what I've learned and what intrigues me about the subject at hand. Thomas Edison, for all intents and purposes, he was an American luminary. No pun intended, really, because he was the inventor of the light bulb. But he was considered an American luminary. In fact, at one time, he was called the greatest living American in a New York Times poll. He was the most important man of his day. He was just a vociferous laborer, and he loved to work. By no means does this book try to convince anyone that he was a likable guy. I don't get the impression he was. I never have had that impression, even before touching this book. But he's certainly worth noting and observing and studying, because there's something we can learn from people who have such enormous dedication, regardless of the sacrifices they had to make in order to achieve their dreams or their vision. But he was somebody who loved to labor, and it was said that in his adult life he cranked out a patent every 10 to 12 days. In fact, I think he is the record holder for the most patents, and it made him a multimillionaire. And money was certainly not an issue with him. He was not interested in being rich. And he wasn't even really interested in spending his money for the purpose of pleasure. His family was a different story. But he spent all of his time working. That's what he was all about. And it made him somewhat neglectful. But I think it also made him somewhat misunderstood. And then in other ways, maybe not so misunderstood. And so he was a very complex man, as you can expect someone to be. We kind of look at Elon Musk in our day and age as being how they viewed Edison in his time. And oddly enough, this book really starts in the winter years of Edison's life. I don't know why yet. I'm not far enough into the book to understand the reason for starting at that point, because usually biographies begin, well, at the very beginning, the beginning of someone's life. But it didn't with this. Now it may do that. It may circle back around and do that very thing. But nevertheless, there's nothing lost because of that. Now, here's some of the things I want to share with you. You know, regardless of any impediment that he self-manufactured within his own personality, one cannot deny his ability to overcome and his ability to see things through. His level of commitment was unparalleled. My family and I went down to Fort Myers, Florida. Fort Myers, it's a couple hours away from here, where he had one of his homes and his laboratories. We went there a couple years ago and walked through his laboratory, and that was really interesting. And then there's an Edison house down there we did not get to go through because there was a storm that brewed up that day, and for some reason they wouldn't allow us to go over there. So I really want to go back, and I suggest if you ever make it to Florida, go down to Fort Myers and check out the Edison laboratory. But I did not realize that Edison had employed so many people at the Thomas A. Edison Corporation. I had no idea. He had, I think, in 1920, he had about 11,000 employees. And some cities don't even have that many people. 11,000 employees. It was a massive business. And I really always thought in my mind, when I envisioned Edison at work and his employees, I imagined, more or less, I guess, ignorantly, a small group of brilliant-minded, like-minded people like him. But that was not the case. There was a recession, I think it was in the 1920s. My dates might not be right, but there was a point when he had to lay off about 7,000 people and then eventually try to rehire them back. But he was a resilient man. His son, Charles Edison, was left in charge for a time to run the business while Edison was involved with other things, either being out of the country or abroad in some capacity or another. And Charles Edison seems like a very nice man. He did not want to lay off people. He had a different idea of how things worked, but his father told him, "Look, I know how these recessions, I know how these financial setbacks work. I've been through half a dozen of them, and you're going to learn something from all of this." And that was Edison's attitude toward his son and pretty much toward everything in life. You're going to learn something from this. And I think that, nothing was lost on him. And I think that's something that we can all learn from, is whatever you're going through, whatever you've experienced is either going to pay dividends on down the road in the future when you go through similar setbacks. You will be more prepared, or if you haven't experienced the particular setback you're going through now, you should be willing to learn from it and just weather the storm, because it will prepare you for later on, because there's no guarantee that when things get better that they stay better. If you understand the process that Edison went through to develop even just the light bulb itself, you understand the thousands upon thousands of failures he had. And failure was just kind of a built-in expectancy. He expected failure. And really, honestly, every great philosopher will tell you to plan for failure or to fail your way to the top. But it's more important to accept it and not to balk at it and give up. Now, there's a few things I want to share that really stuck out so far in just the 41 pages I've read that I want to bring up to you. When Edison, having 11,000 people in his employ, he developed a sort of a test to kind of sift out people for, what's the word I want to use? Qualifications. And so he developed a battery of questions that were just seemingly impossible to answer. It was unrealistic, and people were kind of upset with him because he would interview hundreds and hundreds, or at least hundreds and hundreds of people would take this test and try to answer these questions, and maybe only 4 would get hired. And I doubt that even those 4 got many of them right. But he got a lot of flack for it, and there's a lot of opinions about it. There's a lot of talk about how hard Edison made it to get hired by him. Now here's an example of what I'm talking about. He was very upset when his questions got leaked. I'm going to give him some of them to you now, but he got very upset when his questions were leaked to the press because that exposed him to some scrutiny. He tried to explain himself later on, but said Edison had not meant his questions to be leaked. He was obliged to draft another 113 questions. So I guess there's originally 113 questions. That's a lot. But they too ended up in newspapers across the country under such headlines as, "If you cannot answer these, you're ignorant," Edison says. I don't know if he actually said that, but that's what the papers were saying. Harper's Magazine accused him of indulging in philatelism. I don't know how to say that word. I'll put it on the screen. Or pedantic pleasure in exposing the ignorance of other people. But the questions, though difficult, were not condescending. So here's a few of the questions. And think about how hard this would be to answer. Which country drank the most tea before the war? What is the first line of the Enid? I don't know how you say that. There's a lot of words I don't know how to say, guys, but you'll see the questions here on the screen. Where is the live center of a lathe? Name 2 locks on the Panama Canal. What is the weight of air in a room 20 by 30 by 10? Who invented logarithms? What state is the name of a famous violin maker? I don't even know that. I need to look that up. I read that and it kind of stuck out to me at the time, and I meant to look it up and I haven't yet. If you think you know, if you can figure it out, put it down in the comment section down below. I'd be curious. There's got to be somebody out there listening to this who knows the answer just like that to that one. Another one, how fast does sound travel per foot per second? That's crazy. It's just crazy. Here's another one. He asked what is the length of a short circuit, the number of stripes on a zebra, and the provenance of jazz bow ties. The provenance of jazz bow ties. Anyway, there's other ones. Obviously there's other ones. There's 113 of them, but he got a lot of flack for him. And so there were other luminaries of the time who weighed in and gave their opinion on the matter, or at least of Edison himself. Albert Einstein had this to say. It said when it was asked how fast, I guess Albert Einstein had read some of these questions, and when he came to the question, how fast does sound travel per foot per second, it said the last item was too much for even Albert Einstein. Sounding defensive when it was put to him, the father of relativity said through an interpreter that he saw no point in cluttering his mind with data obtainable from any encyclopedia. In other words, that question's too hard, but I could answer it if I wanted to. It's probably an encyclopedia, but maybe he had a point. He said the value of a college education, Einstein huffed, is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. Yes, he's right. I would agree with that. Although modern day universities are telling people what to think, not training them to think. But that's it. I don't want to get off on a rabbit trail. Nikola Tesla, Einstein's rival in popular genius rankings, agreed. He said Edison attaches too great a value to mere memory. Well, maybe he did. It was said that he could read books, and Elon Musk is very similar this way, but Edison could read books so fast, and he could memorize quotes, 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 and he co and facts out of books that were important to him, and they stuck in his memory. It's not that he had a photographic memory for every page he read, but when something stuck out that meant something to him, he could forever remember it. Let me see. There was something else that was said here. On Tesla, I think, at a Boston University, a professor of psychology said, I guess this is kind of more or less like a question that was posed to Edison. Are you not perhaps setting a standard for others by means of your own accomplishments, and yet we have but one Edison in the United States? That'd be like, referring to Elon Musk, and that'd be like Elon Musk looking for another Elon Musk, right? Or another Bill Gates, or it'd be like them looking for a duplicate. Now, here's something to consider. I had to ask myself this question when I read this: is do we, even though we're not on that intellectual level, do we do the same thing with other people? Do we size up people to meet our standard? Or do we make ourselves the gold standard for what we allow in others? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. First of all, we are not the gold standard. And certainly Edison himself did not claim to be, but this is the perception that was obtained by other people. But I wouldn't even want to be perceived as thinking of myself as a gold standard, not allowing in other people what anything less than what I see myself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on that. However, I do think it is important to have standards, and it is kind of important to know, to have some way of gauging what you want out of perhaps relationships or affiliations with other people. You may not want to make your questions that hard. You may not want to make it that difficult. But there's something to take away from all of that. So anyway, it was humorous. It was said in here that humorous professionals and amateurs referred to Edison as having an ignorameter. By posing these questions, he had this is basically an ignorameter to find out how stupid you really were. But he didn't really see it that way. But what was funny was, it said here that a group of Wellesley girls, I don't know how old they would have been, but it said a group of Wellesley girls sent him a 5-foot-long list of their own questions, including, what are the chemical properties of catnip? And when you turn off the electric light, where does the light go? I thought that was funny. I thought that was pretty good. Anyway, like I said before, Edison was not someone who's concerned being rich, although he did make himself very wealthy. It was said that when he died, there was found, like I think it was said in here that there was a paper or some scribblings in his pocket of all these things he wanted to get to patent. There's all these ideas he hadn't acted on yet, but he always had something in the pipeline. Okay? Even when he died, he had something in the pipeline he was working toward. This is what moves me about this, is that we, especially as men, we need to have something that we're planning on doing all the time. There's something that we're working on all the time. This is what gave him purpose, and it's what will give you and I purpose. Do you just come home from work every day and sit in front of the TV? What do you do? Are you working on something? I don't care what it is. Always be moving. They say a body in motion stays in motion, but so does a mind. Keep it working. Keep it working. It was saying, in regards to how he viewed wealth, it said the trappings of wealth meant nothing to Edison. Were he not married to a woman who had been brought up rich and wished to stay that way, he would have been ready to plow every spare cent back into his business and live like a laborer. For a while in the 1890s, he had done just that, crashing through more than $2 million, and he looked back on it as a period of acute happiness. Isn't that something? This goes back to something I read in a book I just read. Well, it was the discourse, Epictetus's Discourses, the first century philosopher. Epictetus said, in a nutshell, I'm summarizing it, but we need to be concerned less with fame and wealth than just focusing on good work. Just focus on doing good work, regardless of whatever becomes of it. Not really about anything else, is it? When he was going deaf, and he was going deaf for quite a while, he was completely deaf in one ear and half deaf in the other. When he was asked about it, he said, I don't mind it in the least. He said, I don't mind being deaf in the least. And in fact, I consider it an advantage, as it has preserved me from the distractions of a noisy world. Man, that's something I've thought about quite a bit. As you get to be older and your eyesight starts to, be compromised a little bit, and maybe your hearing too. I think my hearing's good, although if you asked my wife, she would probably tell you it wasn't. But I've often thought that if my hearing went, I think I'd be upset if my sight went, but if my hearing went, I don't think it would be such a bad thing, all right? I mean, we live in a noisy world, but here's why I point this out. Edison found an advantage even in a handicap. He found an advantage even in a handicap. Can you do that? Question is, can I do that? There's going to be things that happen to you that are out of your control. There's not anything you're going to be able to do about it. But Edison had the attitude that even his handicap could benefit him. He like he said, he didn't mind it in the least. I really hope to develop that kind of an attitude. First of all, as I get to be older, but I wish I could have thought that way a long time ago, because Lord knows I have plenty of my own handicaps. Maybe they may not be physical. They will be eventually, maybe. But many of them have been psychological. Some of them have just been downright sinful. And so I do believe that whatever cards you're dealt in life, you need to make them work to your advantage. Well, guys, that's where I'm at right now, up to page 41. I will be sharing more of my thoughts on this book with you. I really hope that it's compelled you to take a look at getting this book for yourself. And I will put a link in the description below whereby you can just click onto it and have it delivered to your home. It'd be easier than going out looking for. I actually got this at Books A Million on clearance. I get a lot of my books in the clearance section. First of all, it's because I'm kind of cheap, and second, it's because I know that all books eventually make it there anyway. All right, and this is originally marked at like $38 off the shelf. I got it, I think for under 10. It's the way I roll, man. It's the way I roll. Listen, if you guys want to know anything, I was gonna say, if you guys want to know what I used to shave my head today, because some of you guys watching this do shave your head. I used the Bald Buddy made by the Cut Buddy, and it's a very handy device. There are a lot of times I just do not feel like taking the time to apply a razor, and I just want to be quick about it. Usually I shave my head dry with the Bald Buddy, but you can use it wet or dry, and they have shaving cream that comes with it and an assortment of other things. I have a code and a link. All you have to do is click on it in the description below. It'll save you some money, but it's a handy device. They do not sponsor this video, but I am an affiliate of theirs, and it's a product I believe in. I also, as you can see in the video, I use it on my neckline too, and I even kind of use it on my cheek line, even though I don't show it there. But the Bald Buddy is a great device to have, so check them out. You can use it not just on your head, but really anywhere. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave your comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. hit the notification bell so you can stay apprised of any continuation of this particular subject or any other videos that might be of interest to you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.